Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing The Terminator. This film is directed by James Cameron. It was one of his early pictures. Stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Biehn and Linda Hamilton. And it is the story of Sarah Connor, played by Linda Hamilton, an average woman in the 80s who works at a diner and a cafe. Her life is thrown into chaos as a robotic killing machine from the future known as the Terminator comes to try and kill her. She is looked after and defended by a soldier from the future who's played by Michael Biehn, and it's about him trying to defend her against this creature, trying to stop it from killing her. As it turns out, in the future there is a war between man and robots, and humanity is mostly wiped out except for a few people left as part of the rebellion. And this robot has been sent back in time to kill Sarah Connor, because in the future she will give birth to John Connor, who will become the leader of the resistance against the Terminators and the artificial intelligence and robots. Most people have seen this, and if you haven't, well, obviously you're not really into sci-fi action films, and if you like the second one, you really have to see the first one for where it all began. What I really like about this movie in particular is the feel and the look of it. Like, it's sort of, the future's sort of gritty and dark and disgusting looking, and the America in the 80s in the streets and where this is set is exactly the same. So it sort of has a connection with both these sort of eras and areas within the film, and gives it such an interesting look and feel. I think James Cameron outdid himself with this. For one of his early pictures, he does a really great job, tells a simple and basic story, casts some really interesting actors in the roles. Who knew Arnold Schwarzenegger would make a perfect sort of robotic Terminator character? He's brilliant in this. Stan Winston does a really great job of creating the Terminator. A lot of stop motions with the creatures and the spaceships and the robots themselves. And it's really fascinating to see what he can do and what he did do at that sort of time and period. I just like Linda Hamilton plays Sarah Connor really well. Like Sarah Connor in the first movie, she's sort of a bit timid, a bit scared, and she has to become the hero, has to find the courage to become the hero throughout the film. And that courage is given to her by Michael Biehn's character, who Kyle Reese, who's a really fascinating character, and they do really great things with his character by having dream sequences and bits and pieces of him remembering what it was like. We start with the war, and we start with a bit of information about it, and then we learn more of it throughout the film, and I think that's really, really great. And he's a real driving force behind that sort of backstory to that sort of information. There's a lot of classic scenes in it, especially the police station scene where the classic line, "I'll be back," Arnie says, and comes back and crashes a car through the police station entrance and wreaks havoc on the police station, which is a great scene and very well done. There's a lot of false, is the Terminator dead, or is he keep going? There's got some classic lines and classic ideas, and I think he just really crafts a really fascinating, wonderful film. And I'd go as far as to say this is probably my favourite out of this one and the sequel. Now, I grew up on the sequel and has some great elements to it and expanded on the story, and gave you some great groundbreaking special effects and more action and stuff. In the second one, it was a massive film. With this one, it's simpler, basic story. It's the beginning. It shows who they are, what's going on, and it's just sort of gritty and real, and I kind of like that. And we didn't really need to know, in this one anyway, of Skynet or Cyberdyne or any of these other things at this point. It was just a simple basic story of this Terminator coming back to kill this woman. This man comes back to defend her and to stop him from killing her. It's just such a simple and basic sort of story, and it sets up so much, and there's some great little bits and pieces through it. And the ending's really great, where she's sort of pregnant now and she's in the Jeep and she's heading off into the unknown. It's such a fascinating and well-structured film. And I really thoroughly enjoyed a lot about it. And Stan Winston's, like when he creates Arnold Schwarzenegger look like to be the Terminator, it looks really great when he's sort of cutting his eye and trying to fix that up, and his hand as well, and just the prosthetics and the robotics that they use was great. Look, some of it is dated, but at the time it was sort of groundbreaking, and that's what you expect from James Cameron, to try and take something and do something completely different with it. And he definitely did with this film, and it was a big, massive hit for him. And it proved that he was a great director and was innovative and had some really brilliant ideas. The action's really great. There's some great scenes with a truck blowing up. There is some stop motion in it, which is a bit dated, I guess you would say, but it sort of works for what the film is going for. And it obviously had a bit of a budget, not a massive, but a bit of a budget, and it did a really great job, and he was very effective with what he had and created. Michael Biehn gives a really great performance, probably one of the best during this time, besides his performance in Aliens, which I thought was really great. Bill Paxton's in this too, just for a small moment, as one of the punks at the start where the Terminator appears to find clothing that's suitable for him, which is really great and sort of a throwback to that era. And the 80s is another element to this film. I never used to like the 80s when I was a kid, but now I'm sort of a really big fan of it. And I was just so impressed with this. And it's a film I've only watched a few times, as I'm a big fan of the sequel. But every time I watch it, I get something else out of it each time. Look, final verdict, if you haven't seen The Terminator, you really need to see it. You need to see where it all began. If you're a fan of Terminator 2, then you should, and haven't seen Terminator 1, you should really see it. It isn't the same. It's more basic and gritty and